Robin Cochran with Learning and Professional Development, and welcome to this hospice system training session on clinical documentation oversight. This session is designed for managers of clinical practice who audit clinical forms. Let's get started by looking at our objectives. By the end of this session, attendees will be able to locate and audit the comprehensive assessment, the medication profile, and the plan of care, send the documents to the clinician for correction if needed, apply appropriate marks to the admission documents, and process the plan of care. The basic steps involved in the QA process are reviewing key areas of the assessment and additional documentation, reviewing the plan of care, reviewing the medication profile, notifying the assessing clinician of needed clarifications and corrections, reviewing those corrections, and applying the marks to the documents. Use View Online Activity to identify forms that are ready for review. Select View Online Activity in the Forms Review QA section on the main menu. The View Online Activity screen displays. You'll use the filters to narrow or expand the number and type of documents on the report. Assessments in a sent to office or corrected status should be ready for audit. Select Go to refresh the results. This report, like most system reports, can be sorted by selecting the column header. Sort by form date to review the oldest documents first. Select a form title or its corresponding blue arrow to open the form. Although all sections of the assessment should be reviewed for appropriate and accurate documentation, the following fields are critical to the hospice item set and the plan of care. Pay especially close attention to the benefit period and start of care dates, the level of care, the location of care, the proposed principal diagnosis and additional diagnoses, the establishment of the plan of care, and the frequencies. Also, any other fields displaying the HIS indicator. Ensure benefit period and start of care date and location of care entries are accurate. This information flows to McKesson Hospice to admit the patient and to support billing claim details. Proposed principal and additional diagnosis fields should be blank unless the ICD or coding completed mark from the coder appears on the assessment. The assessing nurse should have entered all proposed diagnoses and their onset or exacerbation dates, as well as the relevant narrative medical history in the brief medical history field. Level of care and the establishment of the plan of care must be completed on each assessment. Check that frequencies are present and appropriate, and mark the assessment ready to schedule to prompt the scheduler to assign additional team members and to add the visits to the patient's schedule. As errors are identified, select the Notes link at the top of the page. In the Notes pop-up, type instructions for the assessing clinician and select Add Note. The confirmation message "Note successfully added" displays above the text box in red, and the instructions display at the bottom. Close the note by selecting the X in the upper right corner. The system marks the document by outlining the corresponding page number and highlighting the Notes link. Repeat the process for each page that needs correction. Once all errors have been addressed with notes, scroll to the bottom of the form and select Needs Correction. A confirmation message displays. Select OK. The form is saved to the clinician's To Be Corrected folder. Once the clinician has addressed all of the identified needs for correction, he or she sends it to the office again. The corrected assessment appears in the corrected folder. To continue auditing the assessment, locate it in the corrected folder and open it by selecting the form title or the blue arrow. Once the form opens, navigate to the highlighted page and select the highlighted notes link. Review the clinician's response, review the form itself for correction, and select the Resolve Notes link to close and finalize the correction note. Once the assessment meets QA standards, apply the QA mark to the form. The mark can be added in one of three ways: directly on the document using the Select an Action drop-down and sign saving the form, in View Online Activity by selecting the form with the checkbox and using the Select an Action drop-down, or in the patient chart. To mark the form in the patient chart, select the form with its corresponding checkbox and use the Select an Action drop-down. The steps involved in auditing the comprehensive drug profile are reviewing and correcting and signing medication entries, affirming the medication review, and marking the profile QA. Review each medication entry, paying special attention to the hospice covers column. Make corrections as needed, and click Sign in the clinical signature date column. This applies an electronic signature, date, and time to each entry. The medication review section contains a checkbox to indicate that the profile has been reviewed and approved by an individual with palliative care training. Verify that the review has taken place and that the box is checked. Indicate with checkboxes with whom the profile was reviewed and the date of that review. Once the profile meets QA standards, apply the Approved and QA marks to the form by using the Select an Action drop-down. Then scroll to the bottom and sign save the form. The steps involved in processing the plan of care are reviewing every page, affirming the medication review, entering diagnoses and editing frequencies, completing and signing the plan of care, and checking the integration log to confirm that the plan of care interfaces to McKesson Hospice. Plans of care are developed by the IDG team and updated collaboratively in the IDG meeting. Before the plan of care is completed or locked, it must be audited. Open the plan of care in the View Online Activities Shared folder or the patient chart, and open it by selecting the form title or the corresponding blue arrow. The plan of care is a multiple-page document. When it is created, information flows to it from the patient profile and individual discipline assessments that have already been documented. If you find a charting error on the plan of care, it must be corrected on the source document as well as on the plan of care. This step is necessary because information does not flow back to the source document from the plan of care, and information entered on the source document does not flow to the plan of care once it has been created. Every page of the plan of care must be reviewed for accuracy and completeness. Ensure that all demographics, physicians, levels of care, disaster codes, and resuscitation status fields are populated, and that each discipline has entered problems, goals, interventions, and a plan in their designated areas. Discipline visit frequencies should be appropriate and written accurately, and IDG team member signatures must be present. The diagnoses entered on the Nursing Comprehensive Assessment flow over to the plan of care. Confirm that the diagnoses and the ICD codes populate on the plan of care. Coding updates and changes are made directly on the plan of care. Review the diagnoses and confirm that the hospice medical director has addressed relatedness with the yes/no column and provided reasons for all no answers. Confirm the frequencies entered are appropriate and written accurately. The frequencies entered on the plan of care appear on the patient's schedule as unassigned visits. Mark the plan of care ready to schedule to signify to the scheduler that they should be assigned to IDG team members. All members of the IDG team who participate in the IDG meeting should have signed the plan of care signature section on the last page. Once the plan of care meets QA standards, apply the mark QA using the Select an Action dropdown. Scroll to the bottom of the page and select Complete. Enter your user ID and password in the Authorized Signature pop-up and select Authorize. The plan of care is locked and is available for view only to all assigned personnel. Once the plan of care has been completed, confirm on the integration log that it flowed to McKesson Hospice. Select Integration Log in the Administrative section of the main menu. The integration log defaults to display all documents that have failed to flow to McKesson Hospice on the current day. Reset the filters as needed, and select Go to refresh. The example shown here has no failed or declined documents. When a document fails to export from the system or is rejected by McKesson Hospice, it appears on the integration log. You can view details about the errors by selecting the plus sign. Attendees should be able to locate and audit the comprehensive assessment, medication profile, and plan of care, send documents to the clinician for correction, apply appropriate marks to admission documents, and process the plan of care.
That concludes this hospice system training session on clinical documentation oversight. Thank you for participating, and we hope that you found this session informative and helpful as we collaborate together to deliver uncompromising care. Thank you.